The Kthar hegemony was a civilization built on the bedrock of purity and logic. For millennia, they had cultivated a society of unparalleled elegance and technological sophistication, their existence a testament to meticulous control and biological perfection. Their home world, Kthar Prime, was a jewel of geometric precision, its cities gleaming spires of crystalline alloys that pierced a perpetually filtered sky. Every breath of air, every drop of water, every nutrient consumed was precisely calibrated, free from contamination. Disease was not merely a historical footnote. It was an abstract concept, a relic of less evolved biologies. The Kthar themselves were beings of shimmering, iridescent scales, their forms lean and angular, reflecting their logical minds. Their internal systems were a marvel of biological engineering, redundant organs, self-repairing cellular structures, and an immune system so exquisitely precise it could identify and neutralize any known pathogen with surgical efficiency. They had evolved in a vacuum-sealed, disease-free environment, their perfection honed by eons of controlled breeding and genetic optimization. They were the pinnacle of galactic life, and they knew it. Their starships, the Grand Armada of Purity, were extensions of this philosophy. Sleek, silent, and powered by fusion reactors that left no trace of exhaust, they moved through the void like predatory jewels. Their interiors were hermetically sealed, maintained a pristine, sterile equilibrium, their crews encased in environmental suits even within their own vessels, a testament to their unwavering commitment to biological integrity. Commander Xylos, a Kthar of the highest caste, his scales a deep, resonant sapphire, stood on the bridge of the flagship, the logical imperative. His multifaceted eyes scanned the star charts, his mind processing vast streams of data with effortless precision. He was the epitome of Kthar excellence, logical, efficient, utterly devoid of what he considered unnecessary emotions. Report on the designated target, Subdelegate Vlar, Xylos projected, his voice a series of precise, resonant clicks. Vlar, a Kthar xenobiologist with slightly duller, more academic scales, adjusted his optical sensors. Designation Earth. A class for habitable world, rich in heavy metals and liquid water. Biosphere classification, chaotic. Atmospheric composition, nitrogen-oxygen mix, high particulate count, significant microbial load. Planetary surface, approximately 70% covered in hydrous liquid, 30% landmass, heavily scarred by geological instability and uncontrolled biological growth. Xylos processed the data, and the dominant sentient species. Designation Humanity, bipedal, carbon-based, highly adaptable. Population density, extreme and localized regions. Technological development, rudimentary by hegemony standards. Spacefaring capability, nascent. Threat assessment, negligible. Xylos's internal regulators registered a faint ripple of disdain. Chaotic, microbial load, uncontrolled biological growth. These humans sound unsanitary. Vlar's optical sensors narrowed slightly. Indeed, Commander, their internal biomes are a bewildering array of competing microorganisms. Their digestive processes are brutally inefficient, capable of processing a bewildering variety of organic matter, much of it decaying. Their waste products are remarkable in their biological complexity. Xylos shuddered, a barely perceptible tremor through his scales. A species that tolerates such internal impurity. Fascinating, in a purely academic sense. They are a resource, nothing more. A planet to be harvested, its inhabitants relocated or, if necessary, purged. Their rapid expansion and ingenuity are noted, Commander. Vlar continued, displaying images of human cities, sprawling, messy, yet vibrant. They have demonstrated a remarkable capacity for problem-solving, albeit through inefficient, trial-and-error methods. Trial and error, Xylos scoffed, the antithesis of logical progression. No matter. The Grand Armada of Purity will demonstrate the efficiency of order. Prepare for orbital bombardment of all major population centers. Ground forces will then secure resource extraction sites. Ensure all environmental suit protocols are at maximum. We will not allow their biological chaos to contaminate our perfection. The Kthar hegemony, in its pristine arrogance, saw Earth as nothing more than a quarry, its inhabitants a minor, biologically impure nuisance. They were about to learn that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in perfection, but in the very imperfections one so readily dismisses. The Grand Armada of Purity arrived in Earth orbit with a silent, terrifying majesty. Hundreds of Cthar warships, their hulls reflecting the sun like polished obsidian, formed a vast, geometric pattern above the blue-green planet. Their sheer size dwarfed anything humanity had ever conceived. The lead vessel, the logical imperative, cast a shadow that stretched across entire continents. On Earth, panic erupted. Satellites went dark, global communications fractured, and the skies filled with the ominous, silent shapes of the alien fleet. Governments scrambled, military forces mobilized, but it was clear, even to the most optimistic strategists, that this was not a conventional war. This was an extermination. General Anya Sharma, her face grim but resolute, stood on the command bridge of the UNS Defiance, humanity's flagship, a vessel designed for exploration, not war. Around her, screens flickered with the terrifying reality of the Cthar presence. "They're ignoring our hails," a comms officer reported, his voice tight with fear. No response. Just silence. "Of course," Sharma muttered, her gaze fixed on the colossal alien ships. "They don't see us as equals. Just insects." The Cthar's first move was a show of overwhelming force. A single, focused energy beam lanced down from the logical imperative, vaporizing a major coastal city in a flash of incandescent light. No warning, no negotiation. Just annihilation. "They're testing our resolve," Sharma said, her jaw clenched. "We're demonstrating theirs. It doesn't matter. We fight." Humanity fought. Fighters, bombers, and ground-to-orbit missile batteries launched a desperate, suicidal assault. The Cthar shields, shimmering with an almost invisible energy, shrugged off the attacks with contemptuous ease. Human ships exploded into fireballs, their valiant crews reduced to scattered atoms. On the ground, Cthar dropships, sleek and silent, descended through the atmosphere. They deployed ground forces, Cthar warriors clad in advanced power armor, their plasma rifles spitting bolts of devastating energy. Human soldiers, armed with conventional firearms and a desperate courage, met them in the ruins of their cities. The battle was brutally one-sided. Cthar armor deflected bullets, their energy weapons vaporized human defenses, and their disciplined formations swept aside any resistance. "Casualties are catastrophic, General," a tactical officer shouted, his voice cracking. "They're pushing through our lines in Sector Gamma. Air superiority is 0. Sharma watched the tactical map, her heart heavy. They were losing. Rapidly. Their technology was centuries behind, their numbers insignificant against the Cthar's vast armada. But even as the defeat became inevitable, she saw something else on the screens. Pockets of human resistance, isolated, desperate, but still fighting. A sniper team holding a rooftop against impossible odds. A group of civilians, armed with scavenged weapons, ambushing a Cthar patrol. "They don't understand us," Sharma murmured, more to herself than to her crew. "They think we'll break. They think we'll surrender." She looked at the faces of her crew, tired, scared, but resolute. They were not pristine, like the Cthar. Their uniforms were stained, their faces etched with the lines of stress and fear. But their eyes held a defiance that no Cthar could comprehend. "Maintain defensive posture," Sharma ordered, her voice clear and strong. "Continue engaging targets of opportunity. We may not win this battle, but we will make them pay for every inch. We will show them what it means to be human." The Cthar, in their sterile perfection, were about to learn a lesson that no amount of logic or technological superiority could teach. They were about to encounter an enemy they could not comprehend, an enemy that resided not in their weapons, but in the very air they breathed, the very ground they walked on. The invasion had begun, but the true war, the one humanity was uniquely equipped to fight, was about to start. The Cthar ground forces were meticulously efficient. They secured key resource sites, established temporary processing facilities, and began the systematic extraction of Earth's mineral wealth. Their operations were conducted with an almost surgical precision, minimizing environmental impact, not out of ecological concern, but to maintain the purity of their equipment and personnel. Commander Xylos, observing from orbit, was satisfied. The human resistance, while surprisingly tenacious, was being systematically dismantled. Their primitive weaponry was no match for Cthar power armor and energy shields. Soon, Earth would be a conquered world, its resources flowing into the hegemony. On the ground, Subdelegate Vlar, overseeing a mineral extraction team in what was once a sprawling human industrial complex, felt a faint, unfamiliar sensation, a slight dryness in his respiratory membranes, a barely perceptible itch beneath his scales. He dismissed it as an anomaly, perhaps a localized environmental irritant. His environmental suit, a marvel of Cthar engineering, was designed to filter out anything harmful. Subdelegate, sensor readings indicate a higher than anticipated microbial load in this sector's atmosphere, a Cthar technician projected, his voice a series of precise clicks. Our suit filters are operating at maximum efficiency, but few novel organic compounds are registering. Insignificant, Vlar dismissed, adjusting his internal climate controls. This planet is biologically chaotic. Our systems are designed to handle such impurities. But the insignificant compounds persisted. Over the next few cycles, more Cthar personnel began to report similar, mild symptoms. A persistent cough, a slight fatigue, a faint, almost imperceptible rash on their scales. These were Cthar, beings who had never experienced sickness in their lives. Their medical protocols had no categories for such trivial ailments. In the sterile confines of the Cthar medical bays, the diagnostic tools, designed to detect major systemic failures or genetic anomalies, found nothing. No known pathogens, no cellular decay, no organ malfunction. The Cthar immune system, so perfectly honed to eradicate specific, identifiable threats, simply didn't register these subtle invaders. It was like trying to catch mist with a finely woven net. It is a psychological phenomenon. The chief medical officer, a Cthar with particularly gleaming scales, declared to Xylos, the stress of planetary conquest, the exposure to such an impure environment, is manifesting as psychosomatic symptoms. Recommend increased mental conditioning for ground personnel. Xylos concurred. He had always known that exposure to chaotic biologies could have adverse effects on the highly ordered Cthar mind. He ordered stricter mental discipline protocols. But the symptoms persisted, and slowly, subtly, began to worsen. The coughs became more frequent, the fatigue more pronounced. The rashes, once barely visible, became slightly inflamed. Cthar, who had never felt anything but perfect equilibrium, now experienced a constant, low-grade discomfort. Their internal regulators, designed for precise balance, were working overtime, trying to counteract an unseen, unidentifiable adversary. Subdelegate Vlar, despite his own growing discomfort, continued his work. He was a scientist, and the anomalies, however minor, intrigued him. He began to take manual atmospheric samples, bypassing the suit's primary filters, and running them through a repurposed Cthar material analyzer. What he found baffled him. The air was teeming with microscopic organic entities. Not just bacteria, but viruses. Billions of them. They were incredibly diverse, constantly mutating, and utterly alien to Cthar biology. They were not designed to kill quickly. They were designed to coexist, to exploit, to adapt. They were the silent, invisible inhabitants of Earth, honed by millennia of coevolution with a messy, resilient host. Commander, Vlar projected, his voice strained. My analysis indicates the pervasive biological contamination. Not a toxin, not a weapon, but living microorganisms. They are everywhere, and our systems, they do not recognize them. Xylos dismissed it. Nonsense, Vlar. Our immune systems are flawless. Our technology is impenetrable. These microorganisms are irrelevant. But the Cthar, in their sterile environmental suits, had unknowingly brought the first, insidious seeds of their undoing back to their pristine ships. A microscopic tear in a glove, a faulty seal on a helmet, a single, exhaled breath from a human prisoner, that somehow bypassed their filter, tiny, insignificant breaches that allowed the unseen enemy to slip through. The Cthar had conquered Earth's defenses, but they had utterly failed to comprehend its true, silent weapon. The mild symptoms rapidly escalated into a full-blown crisis within the Cthar fleet. The coughs became racking, rattling spasms that left Cthar gasping for breath. The fatigue deepened into profound exhaustion, rendering entire crews inert. The rashes blossomed into angry, pustular lesions that covered their iridescent scales, oozing a foul-smelling, viscous fluid. In the sterile medical bays, panic began to set in. Cthar doctors, who had only ever treated minor injuries or performed routine genetic optimizations, found themselves utterly helpless. Their advanced diagnostic tools, designed to identify specific, known pathogens, returned nothing but baffling anomalies. The Cthar immune system, so precise in its response to a clear threat, was now in a state of chaotic overdrive, attacking healthy cells in a desperate, misguided attempt to eradicate the unknown invaders. Their internal systems are failing. A medical officer shrieked, his own scales dulled by the spreading lesions. Organ liquefaction, cellular necrosis, but there is no identifiable cause. Commander Xylos, confined to his command chair, felt a cold dread seep into his logical mind. His perfect fleet, his pristine warriors, were dying, not from human weapons, but from an invisible, incomprehensible enemy. He ordered more stringent quarantines, but they were useless. The sickness spread through the ships like wildfire, bypassing every protocol, every sterile barrier. Subdelegate Vlar, despite his own worsening condition, continued his frantic research. He had collected samples from sick Cthar, bypassing the standard diagnostic procedures and using his repurposed material analyzer. What he found was horrifying. The Cthar's pristine internal biomes were being overrun by a bewildering array of Earth-native microorganisms. "Commander," Vlar projected, his voice weak, his scales visibly mottled. "It is not one pathogen. It is the multitude. Viruses, bacteria, even fungal spores. They are mutating rapidly within our systems, adapting to our unique biology. Our immune response is inadequate. It is too specific. It cannot comprehend this level of biological chaos." Xylos dismissed him with a wave of his hand. "Nonsense, Vlar. Our immune systems are perfect. This is a coordinated biological attack. Find the source. Find the antidote." But there was no single source, no single antidote. Earth's pathogens, honed by millennia of coevolution with a complex, messy host, were a living, adapting ecosystem. The common cold, influenza, measles, chickenpox, even the benign gut flora of a human child, all were alien and lethal to the Cthar's unexposed, hyper-specialized biologies. A Cthar warrior, once a paragon of discipline, collapsed on the bridge, his scales erupting with weeping pustules, his eyes rolling back in his head. His internal regulators shrieked as his organs began to liquefy. He was dead in moments. The logical imperative, once a symbol of Cthar might, became a floating charnel house. The scent of decay, of dying Cthar, permeated the sterile air. Automated systems struggled to cope with the biological contamination, their filters clogging, their air purifiers overwhelmed. Xylos watched the tactical map, his multifaceted eyes wide with horror. Ship after ship went dark, not from battle damage, but from silent, internal collapse. Crews were dying at an alarming rate. The Grand Armada of Purity was being decimated, not by explosions, but by coughs, fevers, and the insidious, unyielding march of Earth's most common ailments. He saw images of human cities, still burning, still ravaged by Cthar weapons. But the humans were still there. They were fighting, yes, but they were also coughing, sneezing, living. Their bodies, accustomed to a constant state of biological warfare, were weathering the storm. "It is an abomination," Xylos whispered, his voice cracking. "Their very existence is a weapon. Their impurity is killing us." The Cthar, who had sought to purge Earth of its biological chaos, were now being purged by it. The whispers of sickness had become a roar, and the Grand Armada of Purity was rapidly descending into a chaos far greater than any they had ever encountered. While the Cthar fleet succumbed to an unseen enemy, humanity on Earth fought a two-front war, against the alien invaders and against their own despair. Cities burned, populations scattered, but pockets of resistance, both military and civilian, continued to fight. In the besieged ruins of what was once New London, Dr. Eris Thorne, a human virologist with a perpetually disheveled appearance and a mind like a steel trap, huddled in a makeshift lab. His equipment was scavenged, powered by a sputtering generator, but his intellect was sharp. He had been monitoring intercepted Cthar comms, listening to their increasingly frantic and bewildered medical reports. Organ liquefaction, cellular necrosis, no identifiable pathogen. Thorne muttered, his fingers flying across a salvaged data pad. They're describing a systemic collapse, but can't find the trigger. It's like they're looking for a single bullet wound when they're being drowned. He had seen the Cthar ground forces, their gleaming armor, their sterile suits, and he had seen the subtle, almost imperceptible breaches. A Cthar soldier wiping a gloved hand across a dusty surface, a dropship's atmospheric intake sucking in a breath of Earth's unfiltered air. "It's us," Thorne whispered, a chilling realization dawning on him. "It's not a weapon we deployed. It's just us." He remembered his lectures on Earth's microbiome, the billions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi that lived in and on every human, every animal, every plant. He thought of the common cold, the flu, the countless childhood diseases that humans shrugged off with a few days of discomfort, or built lifelong immunity to. He thought of the sheer, overwhelming diversity of pathogens on Earth, honed by millennia of coevolution with the resilient, constantly adapting host. The Cthar, with their perfect, sterile biologies, had no defense against such a chaotic onslaught. Their immune systems were like specialized snipers, trained to eliminate specific, well-defined targets. Earth's pathogens were a teeming, mutating horde, overwhelming them with sheer numbers and unpredictable tactics. Thorne frantically tried to establish a secure channel to General Anya Sharma. After several failed attempts, a crackling line connected. "General Sharma, this is Dr. Thorne. Are you receiving?" "Barely, Doctor. We're losing ground in Sector Delta." "What is it?" Sharma's voice was strained, the sound of plasma fire echoing in the background. "General, the Cthar, they're getting sick. Seriously sick. It's not our weapons. It's Earth. Our common colds, our flu strains, our everyday bacteria. They're killing them." Silence on the line, broken only by the distant sounds of battle. Then Sharma's voice, laced with disbelief. "Are you serious, Doctor? You're telling me a common cold is taking down an alien invasion fleet?" "Not just one, General. It's a biological storm. 1,000 different pathogens, all mutating, all adapting to their unique biology. Their immune systems are collapsing. Their perfect, sterile bodies are their weakness. They've never encountered anything like this." Sharma processed this, her mind racing. The overwhelming technological disparity had left them with no hope. But this was different. This was a war they were uniquely equipped to fight. "How do we confirm this, Doctor? How do we weaponize it?" "We don't need to weaponize it, General," Thorne replied, a grim smile touching his lips. "We just need to ensure they get a good, long, deep breath of Earth. We need to expose them, get them to take prisoners, get them to loot our cities, get them to interact with our biosphere as much as possible. Every human, every animal, every patch of soil is a biological weapon." Sharma looked at the tactical map. Her forces were being pushed back, but they were still fighting. And now they had a new mission. A terrifying, disgusting, but utterly human mission. "Understood, Doctor," Sharma said, her voice hardening with a new resolve. "We pivot. New orders, engage and retreat. Draw them in. Force them to contaminate themselves. And for God's sake, tell our people to cough on everything." The Cthar, in their sterile arrogance, had invaded a planet teeming with life. They had dismissed humanity as primitive. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous weapon is not a beam of energy, but a single, microscopic virus, honed by millennia of evolution on a messy, chaotic, and utterly unyielding world. The Cthar fleet, once a symbol of pristine order, was rapidly descending into biological chaos. The initial mild symptoms had exploded into a galaxy-wide pandemic within their ranks. The viruses, bacteria, and fungi of Earth, once dismissed as mere microbial load, were now ravaging their perfected biologies with terrifying efficiency. On the logical imperative, Commander Xylos watched in horror as his ship, once immaculate, became a floating charnel house. The air, despite the best efforts of their filtration systems, was thick with the scent of decay and the metallic tang of diseased Cthar blood. Medical bays overflowed with dying crew, their scales peeling, their internal organs liquefying. Casualty rate is at 47% across the entire armada, Commander. A Cthar officer shrieked, his voice distorted by a racking cough. Life support systems are failing. Automated repair drones are overwhelmed by biological contamination. Xylos felt a surge of pure, illogical terror. His logical mind struggled to comprehend this enemy. It wasn't a weapon he could deflect or a strategy he could counter. It was everywhere. It was inside them. Subdelegate Vlar, his own body ravaged by the plague, his scales a dull, weeping gray, struggled to maintain his composure. Commander, the pathogens are mutating at an unprecedented rate within our systems. They are exploiting every subtle difference in our genetic code. Our immune systems are in a state of anaphylactic shock, destroying our own tissues in a futile attempt to eradicate the invaders. Find an antidote, Vlar. Synthesize a cure. Xylos roared, his voice cracking with desperation. There is no single antidote, Commander. Vlar rasped. There are hundreds, thousands of distinct pathogens, each adapting, each evolving, and our biologies, they are too uniform, too pure. We have no genetic diversity to draw upon, no natural resistance. The Cthar, having evolved in a sterile environment, had no concept of biological diversity beyond their own species. Their immune systems were designed for surgical precision against known threats, not for the messy, adaptive warfare of Earth's pathogens. A common cold virus, harmless to a human, was a novel, rapidly evolving superbug to a Cthar. On the bridge, a Cthar communications officer collapsed, his internal regulators seizing as his respiratory system failed. His last breath was a wet, gurgling sound. The fleet's operational efficiency plummeted. Pilots succumbed mid-flight, sending ships spiraling into uncontrolled descent. Engineering crews died at their stations, leaving reactors to overheat or vital systems to fail. The Cthar, who had never known anything but perfect health, were utterly unprepared for the debilitating effects of widespread illness. Xylos watched the tactical holographic display. Half the fleet was already dead in space, their lights extinguished, their crews annihilated. The remaining ships were crippled, their systems failing, their crews sick and dying. The Grand Armada of Purity was a shattered wreck, not from human weapons, but from the invisible, unyielding, biological onslaught of Earth. He saw images of human cities, still burning, still ravaged. But the humans were still there. They were coughing, yes, and many were sick, but they were recovering. Their bodies, hardened by millennia of biological warfare, were fighting back, adapting, building immunity. He saw a human video feed, captured by a dying Cthar drone, a group of human children, playing in the ruins of a city. One of them coughed a wet, rattling sound, then sneezed, spraying droplets into the air. The Cthar drone's sensors registered billions of viral particles, and the child laughed. Xylos felt a cold, profound horror. This was not war. This was biological annihilation, and the enemy was not a sentient force, but the very air, the very dust, the very life of the planet they had sought to conquer. Full retreat, Xylos ordered, his voice hollow. All remaining vessels, emergency FTL jump. Disengage from this sector immediately. We cannot defeat this. The logical imperative, once the spearhead of an invasion, turned tail, its engines straining, leaving behind a graveyard of its own kind. The Grand Armada of Purity was no more. It had been decimated not by force, but by the unyielding, chaotic, and utterly terrifying biological reality of Earth. The Cathar retreat was not an orderly withdrawal, it was a panic flight. The remaining ships of the Grand Armada of Purity, crippled and dying, limped away from Earth, leaving behind a vast graveyard of their own kind. The silence they left was not one of victory for humanity, but of profound, unsettling emptiness. On Earth, General Anya Sharma watched the Cathar fleet disappear, her face grim. They had survived, but the cost had been immense. Cities were ruins, populations decimated, the planet scarred. Yet they had survived, and they knew why. Dr. Eris Thorne, now a revered figure, stood beside her in the makeshift command center. They ran, General. They ran from a common cold and a bad case of the flu. Sharma nodded. And they'll be back. Or someone else will. They'll learn. They'll adapt. We need to be ready. Thorne smiled, a grim, unsettling expression. Oh, they'll learn. But they'll never adapt to us. Because we're the adaptation. And we're about to show them just how adaptable we can be. The Catharis retreat had left behind a scattering of disabled ships, some still containing dying crew members. These became humanity's new laboratories. Human scientists, led by Thorne, boarded the alien vessels, clad in their own, less pristine, but far more resilient, hazmat suits. They studied the Cathar biology, the effects of Earth's pathogens, and the alien technology. Their immune systems are so specialized, Thorne explained to Sharma, holding up a data pad displaying complex Cathar biological readouts. They have no general response, no broad-spectrum antibodies. It's like they only have keys for specific locks, and we just threw a million random keys at them. The next phase was not about defense, but about deterrence. Humanity needed to send a clear, undeniable message to the galaxy. Earth was not to be trifled with, not because of its weapons, but because of its very existence. Operation Biological Deterrence is a go. Sharma announced to her assembled commanders. We're going to ensure that any alien species considering hostile action against Earth understands the true nature of our defenses. The plan was audacious and utterly terrifying. Humanity began to cultivate hypervirulent, rapidly mutating strains of Earth pathogens, specifically engineered to exploit the weaknesses discovered in Cathar biology. These were not designed to kill humans. They were designed to be perfectly lethal to alien life, while remaining benign or easily manageable for their human hosts. We are creating biological signatures, Thorne explained, each one tailored to a specific alien physiology. We'll use our own bodies as living incubators, our own waste products as dispersal vectors. We are turning ourselves into walking, talking, breathing bioweapons. Volunteers stepped forward. Humans who had survived the Cathar invasion, their bodies scarred, their minds hardened, were willing to become the ultimate deterrent. They were injected with the new, engineered strains, their bodies becoming living factories for alien death. Then came the bait ships, old, barely space-worthy human vessels, stripped of their weapons, but loaded with a grim cargo, a small crew of infected, defiant humans and atmospheric dispersal units filled with concentrated, aerosolized alien-lethal pathogens. These ships were sent out into the void, on pre-programmed courses, designed to intersect with potential alien scouting parties or trade routes. They were not meant to fight. They were meant to be captured. The first bait ship, the Spirit of Defiance, was intercepted by a scouting party from the Xylosian Confederacy, a species known for their highly sensitive sensory organs and meticulous biological protocols. The Xylosians, curious about the wreckage of the Cathar fleet, were drawn to the lone human vessel. They boarded it, expecting to find survivors, or perhaps salvageable technology. What they found were a handful of sick, coughing humans, their faces grimly triumphant. The Xylosians, with their hypersensitive olfactory receptors, immediately detected the alien pathogens. Their environmental suits, designed for their own sterile worlds, were instantly compromised. The Spirit of Defiance was deliberately scuttled by its crew, a final act of sacrifice, ensuring the Xylosians would take the contaminated humans and their deadly cargo back to their own fleet. The results were swift and devastating. The Xylosian fleet, like the Kthar before them, succumbed to the unseen enemy. Their highly specialized biology, their pristine environments, were their undoing. The galaxy watched in bewildered horror as another powerful alien fleet was decimated, not by weapons, but by the invisible, unyielding biological might of Earth. The message was clear. Earth was not a planet to be conquered. It was a biological minefield. Its inhabitants were not to be underestimated. They were the unyielding strain, a species that had turned its very existence into a weapon, a silent, terrifying warning to any who dared to threaten them. The galactic community, a loose confederation of surviving species, watched in stunned silence as the Xylosian Confederacy's fleet disintegrated. The pattern was undeniable. Approach Earth, engage humanity, and then succumb to an unseen, incomprehensible plague. The Kthar had been the first, the Xylosians the second. The message was now seared into the collective consciousness of the galaxy. Commander Xylos, now a pariah within the shattered remnants of the Kthar hegemony, watched from his exile on a barren asteroid. His once gleaming scales were dull, his form gaunt. He had witnessed the destruction of his fleet, the annihilation of his species' pride, all at the hands of a species he had deemed impure. "They are not just surviving," subdelegate Vlar. Xylos projected to his last remaining aide, whose own light form flickered with chronic illness. "They are actively propagating their biological chaos. They are weaponizing their own filth." Vlar, weakened but still lucid, nodded. "They are bait ships, Commander. They are deliberately exposing themselves. They are sacrificing their own to spread the contagion." The galaxy was in a state of terror. No species dared approach Earth. The planet became a quarantine zone, a biological exclusion perimeter. Any ship that ventured too close risked contamination, risking the annihilation of their entire civilization. The Kthar, in their desperate attempt to stem the tide of the plague, had resorted to extreme measures. They had jettisoned entire sections of their ships, incinerated infected vessels, and even attempted to genetically modify their own offspring for greater biological resistance, all to no avail. The Earth pathogens mutated faster than they could adapt, exploiting every new vulnerability. The Great Purge was a Kthar term, initially meant for their systematic cleansing of Earth. Now, it referred to the biological annihilation of their own fleet. Half of the Grand Armada of Purity was dead in space, their hulks silent monuments to a biological war they could not comprehend. The remaining ships were crippled, their crews sick and dying, their systems failing under the relentless assault of Earth's most common ailments. Xylos remembered the images of human children, playing in the ruins, coughing and sneezing. He remembered their laughter, their defiance. He had dismissed them as primitive, as insignificant. Now he understood. Their strength lay not in their technology, but in their very bodies, in the chaotic, messy, unyielding resilience of their biology. "They are not fighting us with weapons, Vlar," Xylos whispered, his voice raspy. "They are fighting us with life, with the sheer, overwhelming, unyielding force of their own biological existence." The Kthar had always strived for perfection, for purity, for order. They had purged their own biologies of any weakness, any inefficiency, and in doing so, they had made themselves utterly vulnerable to the one thing they could not control: chaos. The retreat from Earth was a desperate, humiliating flight. The Kthar, once the dominant power in this sector, were now a broken, dying species, their grand ambitions shattered by an invisible enemy. They had learned a terrible lesson, that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in being clean, but in being dirty, not in being perfect, but in being resilient. As the last Kthar ship, a battered, contaminated hulk, limped away from Earth's orbit, Xylos looked back at the blue-green planet. It was scarred, yes, but it was alive, and it hummed with a silent, terrifying power, the power of the unyielding strain. The Kthar fleet was gone, a shattered remnant fleeing into the void. The Xylosian Confederacy was in disarray, its fleets decimated. Earth remained, ravaged but unconquered, a silent, potent warning to the galaxy. General Anya Sharma stood on the newly rebuilt command bridge of the UNS Defiance, now a symbol of humanity's grim triumph. The planet below was a patchwork of ruins and nascent reconstruction. The air still carried the faint scent of ash and ozone, but also the vibrant, earthy smell of life. "They're gone," a comms officer reported, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "No Kthar signatures detected in this sector. The Xylosians are in full retreat, broadcasting distress calls across their network." Sharma nodded, her gaze fixed on the holographic display of Earth. The cost had been immense. Billions dead, cities destroyed, ecosystems irrevocably altered. But they had survived, and they knew why. Dr. Eris Thorne, looking more disheveled than ever, but with a triumphant glint in his eye, joined her. "They won't be back, General. Not for a long time. And if they do, they'll come with a peace treaty, not an invasion fleet." The news of Earth's biological defense spread like wildfire across the galactic community. The few remaining species, those who had managed to survive the various cosmic scourges that had previously swept through the galaxy, heard the tales with a mixture of profound awe and deep, shuddering fear. Humanity gained fearsome, almost mythical reputation. They were not known for their advanced weaponry, their elegant starships, or their pristine cities. They were known for their very existence, for their messy, chaotic, unyielding biology, for their ability to thrive on what killed everything else. The galactic community, fragmented and terrified, began to establish a new understanding of Earth. It was declared a biohazard zone, a planet to be avoided at all costs by any species with a delicate or specialized biology. Diplomatic contact, when it occurred, was conducted through heavily shielded, automated drones, or by species with robust, adaptable immune systems, often those who had themselves survived similar, albeit less potent, biological threats. Humanity, for its part, began the arduous task of rebuilding. But it was a different kind of rebuilding. Their cities were designed with biological resilience in mind, incorporating advanced air filtration, waste recycling, and even localized biocontainment zones for new, engineered pathogens. Their medical science, once focused on curing disease, now embraced the concept of controlled infection, using benign viral strains to prime the human immune system against potential alien threats. Their culture shifted. The grim humor that had seen them through the Kthar invasion deepened, becoming a fundamental part of their identity. Their art was raw, visceral, often depicting the horrors they had faced, but always with a defiant, hopeful twist. Their music was loud, discordant, yet filled with a strange, powerful energy, a celebration of life in the face of annihilation. Children born after the invasion grew up in a world where the Kthar were not a distant threat, but a cautionary tale. They learned about the Great Plague, the Invisible War, and the unseen weapon. They understood that their very bodies were a shield, their very existence a deterrent. Ktharic, now a permanent exile, spent his days observing Earth from afar, his internal regulators still struggling to comprehend. He saw humans rebuilding, not with grand, logical plans, but with improvisation, with a chaotic energy that baffled him. He saw them adapting to the new, harsher realities of the galaxy, their bodies subtly mutating, their minds hardened by experience. His final report, meticulously compiled, was a testament to his changed perspective. Subject: Humanity, Post-Extinction Event Analysis. Previous classification: Class 3, Developing Species, Biologically Inefficient. Current classification: Class 1, Apex Survivor, Biologically Unyielding. Analysis: Humanity's survival is not due to superior technology or inherent biological purity, but to a unique combination of factors: biological chaos, their highly diverse and adaptable immune systems, coupled with the remarkable capacity for rapid, often grotesque, mutation, allowed them to resist and even weaponize pathogens and environmental toxins. Their internal biomes, once deemed unclean, proved to be a constant training ground for their immune responses. Psychological fortitude, their capacity for emotional volatility, grim humor, and compartmentalization allowed them to endure and even adapt to extreme psychological pressures and mental assaults that shattered other species. They find strength in chaos and meaning in absurdity. Technological improvisation. Their reliance on robust, over-engineered, and often redundant systems, combined with an unparalleled ability to jury-rig, scavenge, and adapt existing technology, allowed them to function in environments where precise, elegant systems failed. Unwavering adaptability. They do not seek to restore a past purity, but embrace change. They rebuild, they mutate, they learn to live with the impossible. They are not afraid to become something other to survive. Conclusion. The Kthar's pursuit of biological purity and technological elegance led them to the brink of extinction. Humanity's embrace of chaos, filth, and adaptability saved them all. The galaxy is now a much messier, a much rougher, but undeniably a far more alive place. Humanity, the species that thrives on what kills everything else, is now the unlikely bedrock of a new galactic order. We must learn from them, however unsettling their methods may be, for in their unyielding strain, we see the true meaning of survival. Tharic closed his data pad. He looked at the distant, blue-green shimmer of Earth. The galaxy was scarred, but it was not silent. It hummed with the rough, defiant song of humanity, a song of survival, of resilience, of an unyielding strain that had faced the end of everything and simply refused to die. The universe had tried to kill them, and they had just gotten stronger. Humanity, fuck yeah. The galaxy, once a tapestry of diverse, often pristine civilizations, was now a desolate expanse, punctuated by the scattered, scarred worlds of humanity and the few, terrified remnants of other species. The Kthar hegemony had collapsed, its surviving members reduced to nomadic refugees, forever haunted by the biological nightmare of Earth. The Xylosian Confederacy was in ruins, its pride shattered, its fleets decimated. A new galactic order, or rather, a new understanding, began to emerge. It was an order defined not by technological might or biological purity, but by a grudging, fearful respect for the unyielding strain humanity. Earth became a nexus, not of trade or diplomacy in the traditional sense, but of grim, necessary interaction. Other species, desperate for knowledge, for a means to survive the next cosmic scourge, began to approach Earth, not with invasion fleets, but with scientific envoys. These envoys were often heavily modified, their biologies altered to mimic human resilience, their ships encased in multi-layered biological containment fields. Dr. Eris Thorne, now an elder statesman of human science, led the Biodefense Initiative. His labs, once crude and scavenged, were now vast, subterranean complexes, teeming with researchers studying alien biologies and engineering new, more potent strains of biological deterrence. We are not creating weapons of aggression, Thorne explained to a delegation of heavily shielded Lumina, beings of pure light, who communicated through psionic projections. We are creating shields. Our very existence is a shield, and we are willing to share the principles, if not the direct pathogens, of our resilience. The Lumina, whose minds had been shattered by the psionic scream, were particularly interested in humanity's psychological fortitude. They studied human art, human philosophy, even human humor, trying to comprehend the chaotic mental processes that allowed humans to endure madness. They found that the very noise of the human mind, its capacity for rationality and emotional volatility, made it immune to the ordered, shattering force of the scream. General Anya Sharma, now the de facto leader of a unified Earth, oversaw the expansion of humanity into the stars. But this was not an expansion of conquest. It was an expansion of survival. Human colony ships, robust and over-engineered, settled on worlds that other species had deemed uninhabitable due to residual radiation, volatile atmospheres, or persistent microbial threats. Humans, with their adapted biologies, their jury-rigged technology, and their unyielding spirit, thrived where others perished. Their colonies were not pristine. They were messy, vibrant, and fiercely independent. They were filled with the sounds of human laughter, human music, and the constant hum of human ingenuity. Their architecture reflected their resilience, buildings that could withstand seismic shifts, atmospheric purifiers that processed toxic gases, and hydroponic farms that grew mutated, yet nutritious, crops in irradiated soil. The Kthar, or what was left of them, occasionally made contact. They were no longer arrogant, but humbled. They sought knowledge from humanity, a way to rebuild their shattered species, to regain some semblance of their former glory. Thorn, with a grim sense of irony, shared the principles of biological diversity, of embracing imperfection, of allowing their biologies to adapt and mutate. It was a bitter pill for the Kthar, whose entire philosophy was built on purity, but it was their only hope. The galaxy was now a much more dangerous place, but also a more resilient one. Humanity, through its sheer, unyielding will to survive, had inadvertently taught the cosmos a brutal lesson. Perfection was brittle. Purity was a weakness. True strength lay in the capacity for chaos, for adaptation, for enduring the unendurable. Humanity's reputation spread across the stars. The species that could not be killed. Not by disease, not by radiation, not by psychic assault, not by assimilation. They were the ones who thrived on what killed everything else. And in a galaxy that had been brought to its knees, that was the most fearsome and most hopeful reputation of all. Centuries passed. The galaxy, once a desolate graveyard, began to slowly, painfully regenerate. Not into the pristine, ordered harmony of the old galactic alliance, but into a new, wilder, more resilient ecosystem. And at its heart were humanity, the unyielding strain, now known by some as the Cosmic Gardeners. Their role in the galaxy had evolved beyond mere survival. Having mastered the art of thriving in the most hostile environments, humanity began to actively cultivate life on dead or dying worlds. They deployed bioseeding ships, vast vessels laden with specially engineered Earth-native extremophiles, bacteria, fungi, and viruses designed to break down toxic compounds, stabilize volatile atmospheres, and enrich barren soil. Dr. Aristhorn's consciousness, now partially integrated into a vast, networked supercomputer on Earth, oversaw these grand projects. We are not terraforming in the old sense. His synthesized voice would explain to his students, a new generation of human xenobiologists. We are inoculating. We are introducing the very chaos that saved us to create new forms of life, new pathways for resilience. These seeded worlds became chaos gardens, vibrant, messy ecosystems where new, adapted life forms began to flourish. Planets once deemed eternally sterile now teemed with strange, mutated flora and fauna, their biologies interwoven with the legacy of Earth. These were not pristine worlds, but they were alive, their very existence a testament to humanity's unique brand of biological engineering. Humanity's own biology continued to evolve. Generations born on the new, harsher colony worlds exhibited subtle, yet profound, adaptations. Their skin developed a faint, iridescent sheen, a natural filter against cosmic radiation. Their internal organs became even more redundant, capable of self-repairing from catastrophic damage. Their immune systems were a living, constantly updating database of alien pathogens, capable of generating rapid, targeted responses to any new threat. Their minds, too, had adapted. The controlled insanity that had saved them from the psionic scream had evolved into a form of hyper-awareness, allowing them to process vast amounts of chaotic information without succumbing to overload. They saw patterns in randomness, found beauty in the grotesque, and embraced the inherent instability of the universe. The remnants of the Kthar, having painfully adopted some of humanity's principles of biological diversity, began to slowly rebuild. They were no longer the proud hegemony, but a humbler, more adaptable species. They often sought humanity's guidance, trading their advanced, albeit fragile, technological knowledge for humanity's unparalleled understanding of biological resilience. The few other surviving species in the galaxy, having witnessed humanity's terrifying strength, now approached them with a mixture of awe and caution. They understood that humanity was not a threat to be conquered, but a force of nature to be respected. Earth, once a target for invasion, was now a sanctuary, a biological wellspring, and a living library of survival. General Anya Sharma, now an ancient, revered figure, her face a roadmap of scars and wisdom, often sat on a balcony overlooking the sprawling, vibrant city of New Earth. The city was a testament to human ingenuity, a chaotic blend of salvaged alien technology and robust, human-made structures, all humming with the energy of a thriving civilization. She watched a group of children playing in a park, their laughter echoing. Their skin had the faint, iridescent sheen, their movements were fluid, and their eyes held a depth of resilience that spoke of generations forged in the crucible of cosmic horror. One child coughed, a soft, natural sound, then continued playing, utterly unconcerned. Sharma smiled. Humanity had faced the end of everything. They had been dismissed as primitive, as impure, as insignificant. But they had endured. They had adapted. They had thrived. And in doing so, they had not only saved themselves, but had inadvertently become the unlikely gardeners of a new, wilder, and more resilient galaxy. Their very existence was a defiant roar in the face of cosmic annihilation. Humanity, the unyielding strain, would continue to thrive, forever pushing the boundaries of what it meant to be alive. The galaxy, reborn from the ashes of cosmic scourges, was now a testament to the enduring, chaotic vitality of life. Humanity, the unyielding strain, stood at its heart, not as rulers, but as the architects of a new, biologically robust order. The Kthar, the Xylosians, and the scattered remnants of other species had learned, often through brutal experience, that perfection was a fragile illusion, and true strength lay in the embrace of imperfection. Earth, the cradle of this new resilience, was a vibrant, sprawling metropolis, its cities no longer pristine, but teeming with life, a symphony of organic and technological integration. The air, once a source of alien terror, was now a symbol of strength, its microbial diversity a constant reminder of humanity's unique defense. Dr. Aristhorne's consciousness, fully merged with the planet-wide bionexus, was the guiding intelligence behind humanity's continued evolution. He oversaw the Pangalactic Bioseeding Project, a monumental undertaking to reseed dead worlds and bolster the resilience of struggling alien biospheres. His insights, now a blend of human intellect and vast biological data, allowed him to identify the precise microbial cocktails needed to kickstart life on even the most inhospitable planets. "We are not colonizing," Thorne's omnipresent voice would echo through the nexus. "We are diversifying. We are introducing the fundamental principles of chaos and adaptation. We are ensuring that life, in all its forms, has the tools to survive the next great whisper." Humanity's own genetic makeup had become fluid, adaptable. While still recognizably human, their bodies were living testaments to their history of survival. Subtle bioluminescence, enhanced regenerative capabilities, and immune systems that could rapidly reconfigure themselves to combat novel threats were common traits. They were the ultimate generalists, capable of thriving in a bewildering array of environments. Their culture reflected this deep integration with chaos. Art was dynamic, constantly shifting, often incorporating living, mutating organisms. Music was complex, layered, embracing dissonance and unexpected harmonies. Philosophy delved into the profound implications of their existence, the beauty of decay, the strength of vulnerability, and the ethical responsibility of being the galaxy's reluctant biological guardians. The Kthar, their scales now often modeled with subtle, harmless mutations, were among humanity's closest allies. They had shed their arrogance, embracing a new philosophy of adaptive purity, understanding that true strength lay not in eliminating impurities, but in learning to live with them, to integrate them. They sent their young to Earth, to study under Thorne, to learn the secrets of biological resilience. Other species, once isolated by their unique biologies, now found common ground in their shared vulnerability and humanity's shared solution. A new form of galactic cooperation emerged, focused not on conquest or expansion, but on mutual survival and the propagation of life. General Anya Sharma, her legacy etched into the very fabric of the new galaxy, passed peacefully, her final thoughts a quiet satisfaction. She had seen humanity face the end of everything, and she had seen them not only survive but thrive, becoming something more, something utterly unique. The future of the galaxy was no longer pristine, but it was vibrant. It was messy. It was alive. And it was resilient. Humanity, the unyielding strain, looked out at the unending horizon of the cosmos, not with fear, but with boundless curiosity and an unyielding spirit of adventure. They were the living proof that even in the face of absolute annihilation, life finds a way. And sometimes, that way is found in the very things that kill everything else. The universe had tried to break them, and they had just gotten stronger. Humanity, fuck yeah,